Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a phenomenon that you've probably seen happen right in front of you. Seriously, think about it. Whether you're walking through a completely packed city street, rushing to your gate at an airport, or just hanging out at a university, you've likely noticed Muslims taking a few minutes out of their day to just stop. They lay out a mat, disconnect from everything around them, and pray. It's this incredibly grounded, observable reality where millions of people literally hit pause on their lives 5 times a day, every single day, without fail.
And seeing that naturally begs the big question, right? Like, why? Why pray 5 times a day? From the outside looking in, it seems like a massive, almost overwhelming commitment. Well, today we're going to unpack the profound reasons behind this foundational practice. We aren't just looking at the how today. We're going to dive deep into the psychological, the historical, and the spiritual why behind Islamic daily worship.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the foundation of faith. Then, we'll explore the night journey, followed by a direct spiritual connection. After that, we'll discuss anchoring the modern day, and finally, we'll wrap up with curing spiritual heedlessness.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the foundation of faith.
Before we go any further, we really need to clear up some core terms. Now, you might have heard the word Allah and thought, like many people do, that it refers to some separate, exclusive deity that only Muslims worship. But as the source material makes absolutely clear, that just isn't true. Linguistically, Allah is simply the Arabic word for the one true creator of the heavens and the earth. In fact, Arabic-speaking Christians and Jews, they use the exact same word Allah when they pray to God. So when we talk about Islamic prayer today, we're talking about directing worship to the universal creator of literally everything.
The next word we need to understand is ibadah. It roughly translates to worship, but its root meaning is actually tied to servitude, essentially being a servant to the Creator. Now, hold on, because I know the word servitude can sound a bit jarring. Worldly slavery to another human is universally condemned, right? It brings absolutely nothing but degradation. But in Islam, spiritual servitude to a perfect Creator is viewed entirely differently. Since God is perfect and doesn't actually need our worship, humbling yourself before Him is considered the highest, most dignified status a human can reach. It completely frees a person from being enslaved to worldly desires or societal pressures.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, the night journey.
This brings us to a truly fascinating piece of historical context known as Al-Isra wal Miraj. According to Islamic tradition, the Prophet Muhammad was taken on a miraculous night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, and from there, he actually ascended through the highest heavens. It was up there, at this ultimate spiritual peak, completely removed from the earthly realm, that God directly decreed the obligation of prayer. But get this, the initial command? It was to pray 50 times a day. Can you imagine? Well, on his way back down, Muhammad encountered the prophet Moses. And Moses basically said, look, 50 prayers is going to be way too difficult for your people to keep up with. He urged Muhammad to go back and ask for a reduction. So after several really reverent requests, the number was carefully brought down to 5 daily prayers. But, and this is a huge but, a divine voice declared that these 5 daily prayers would still carry the monumental spiritual weight and reward of the original 50.
That takes us to Section 3, a direct spiritual connection.
Let's look at the internal mechanics of what's actually happening during these prayers. In Islam, prayer is described using the word najwa, which basically means a secret, completely private conversation directly between the worshiper and God. There is no confessing to a priest here. There's literally no human intermediary at all. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable or pious a religious leader might be, a Muslim doesn't go to them to ask for forgiveness. Instead, the prayer establishes this direct, unbreakable link where the individual can confess their mistakes and ask for mercy straight from the Lord of the worlds. It's incredibly personal.
And this personal connection is built into the very structure of the prayer itself. According to prophetic tradition, the core of the prayer is actually divided perfectly in half. It's a two-way street. In the first half, the worshiper praises and extols God. And then in the second half, in return for that humble praise, God promises to grant the worshiper's requests. So time after time, unit after unit, the person praying asks for things, like guidance on the straight path, and through this intimate dialogue, they believe that request is directly heard and answered.
Section 4. Anchoring the modern day.
So, how does this ancient historical practice actually impact our chaotic modern lives? Well, the Prophet Muhammad used this incredibly vivid metaphor to explain it. He once asked his companions, if there was a river next to your door and you bathed in it 5 times a day, would there be any dirt on you? And of course, they replied, no, absolutely not. He then explained that this is exactly what the 5 daily prayers do with sins. Just by going about our messy, everyday human lives, we accumulate spiritual dirt. But hitting pause 5 times a day, it washes all of that away.
Actually, let's modernize that concept a bit to really put it into perspective. Think back to the height of the recent pandemic. Remember how aggressively everyone was using hand sanitizer? You touch a door handle and boom, sanitizer. Why? Because we were terrified of a virus we couldn't even see. Well, the sources point out that the moment you walk out of your house, or honestly, the second you wake up and blindly start scrolling on your phone in bed, you are exposing yourself to spiritual viruses, worldly distractions, aimless desires, everyday sins. So, just as hand sanitizer disinfects the hands, the daily prayer acts as a much-needed spiritual disinfectant for the soul.
When you look at the daily schedule, you see how these 5 prayers act as anchors distributed perfectly throughout the day. You wake up at dawn, reminding your true purpose before the chaos of the morning even kicks in. At midday, right when work stress is peaking, you completely disconnect and ground yourself. In the afternoon, maybe during that awful rush hour commute, it pulls you back to reality. At sunset, as you're finally coming back to your family, you center yourself once again. And finally, at night, right before sleeping, you reconnect one last time. It's a system designed to forcefully interrupt the modern grind, so you don't get entirely swallowed by worldly exhaustion.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Curing Spiritual Heedlessness.
The sources dive into the psychology of this by describing a specific emotional and spiritual illness called heedlessness. It's essentially a severe lack of awareness of God. To make it relatable, imagine heedlessness as a devastating, punishing drought. Under this drought, the human heart becomes a dry, barren wasteland. And all our endless worldly desires, the constant wanting of more, they act like hot winds just blasting across that desert. They pull us in a million different directions, leaving us burnt out, cracked, and completely empty inside.
But here's the beautiful part. The remembrance of God through prayer acts as rain. When that rain consistently falls 5 times a day, it effectively cures the drought. It literally softens the hardened heart, transforming that barren wasteland into lush spiritual gardens. The source material points to some absolutely profound psychological benefits here. This consistent dose of worship drastically decreases anxiety and provides a deep, unshakable mental tranquility. It offers an inner peace that, let's be honest, is incredibly rare to find in today's world.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really think about. We live in this frantic, exhausting world that is constantly demanding our attention and pulling us towards spiritual drought. But for millions of Muslims, prayer is that daily rain that keeps their hearts alive. So I have to ask you, what is your daily anchor against the chaos and heedlessness of modern life? How do you step away and maintain your own mental tranquility? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this truly fascinating topic. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.